changes is a little bit tricky. If you ask people if they want to have changes, most of the people is going to raise their hand because they're going to think of the changes they think suits for themselves in their mind, right? That's very nice. But the rest of the changes, no. And to be able to change yourself, that's not many people who want to do that. So change, let's talk about change, guys. The four C's, I like to call them. The first C is like change. It's actually occurred, right? Some people make the change for you, or some outer world experiences just struck you hard. So it's the second C kicks in. It's going to be chaotic in your mind, in your body, in your feelings, in your thoughts, right? And as for some of us, it takes very short time to raise up back again, but some just stick around in the chaotic area. You know some of them, and some of us are maybe in that area right now, and that's okay, because we're always different areas in these 4C cycles and all of your life. In the bottom of the line, you have this decision point, I usually call it, because you have to make a decision if you're gonna stay or go away. But when you make the decision to actually stay, of course, it's going to be confusing during a time. That's this third C. This is going to be confusing. Doesn't matter if it's a new behavior, new working skills, new training, new eating habits, whatever it is, it's going to be confusing because you haven't practiced the wax on, wax off enough. But if you do it long enough in your pace you can handle where you are in life right now, it's going to be comfortable after a while. So that's the last C. But you know what's going to happen after comfort, don't you, right? It's going to be another trick, it's going to be another problem, it's going to be another change. I have two questions for you. Would you like the dip to be longer, shallower and milder, or do you want it to be tougher, deeper, but pretty much shorter? Think of that. It's like going to the dentist. I like this similarity. Do you want to go back to the dentist 4 or 5 times to take care of a tooth, or do you want to have the dentist tell you, this is going to be painful, my friend, but it's going to be over in 10 minutes and then we're done? So what do you prefer? It's different depending on what kind of people you are, but most people like to hit me hard and take it off and then we're done with it. So the last question I would say on this challenging area or the changing area is, on which of the 4 pillars does change struck you hardest, do you think? On which of the 4 pillars? It can be all, of course, of them, almost, but most of the case, you're right. It's the last one, the bottom one, the will and engagement. It drops pretty dramatically for most people. So how do you get back on track pretty fast? Because a change without will is, as I would usually say, sustainable as will without change. It's a trick with words, of course, but even if you have a will but don't do any changes, I want to lose weight, I want to improve my sales skills, I want to do more installations, but you don't do it, it's like will without change. And a change without will, it's nothing sustainable is going to come out of it. So that's the trick. So handling change is one of the toughest thing, of course, because we all have a plan in the beginning of the morning, in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of the month or whatever. But the reality strikes in, my friends, and the reality is pretty tricky sometimes. And then to handling the reality, we're all old enough because you've been in the working industry for some while, some of you longer than others, of course. So how do you handling this reality all the time? What do you hold on to? What are your tools to actually be able to do that? Now, how about your grit? How about resilience to actually handling resistance, handling setbacks, which we usually call them? And this is psychologists actually done this short model. It's nothing tricky. It's like common sense actually, but common sense is not so common. You know that, right? So if you get a setback, of course, some people got frustrated. Some people even got panicked about it, depending on what kind of level of the setback it is. This one will drop your focus, of course, of what you're actually focusing on, and of course it will be a weaker execution for you as well, and then you're stuck in this wheel, so you have more setbacks, more frustration, more drop of focus, and then you can't get out of it. So what are your best tips to actually handling setbacks? What would you say for another person, for a colleague, for a friend? What's the best tip to break the chain and get out of it? The first one is yin and yang. To be able to just buy into that life is black and white, life is a wholeness. It's not always white, it's not always dark. I usually like the 4 words coming, actually, if I'm an amateur on the Bible, but I love probably the best 4 words, which is actually helping us getting more grit in our lives. And listen to this. Even this will pass. Even this shall pass. Doesn't matter if you're top of your line, you have reached the highest goal, or you're down in your basement mentally and physically and don't reaching goals or anything creative. Even this shall pass. So it's gonna be good, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be good, it's gonna be bad. Just learn to live with it. Learn to look at the darkness. That's what actually the psychologist Carl Jung is telling us all the time. One of the most famous psychiatrists in the world lived so far. The second one tip is normally to ask yourself this question. It's a very hard question, but it's a very good question. What's good about this? What's good about this? What's good about this is a question which is very provocative, of course, because when you're in the shitstorm, you don't want anyone to ask you that question, because then you want to slap them in the face. But if you ask yourself those questions when the problems are shorter or smaller, you will actually find some greatness in the trouble you're actually in very fast. It's the same thing with COVID-19. What's good about this? And they asked nothing at all. But after approximately a year, they find a list with approximately 10 things to write up which they're grateful for. They had more time to develop their areas. They have more time spending time with their families working from home. They have more time taking care of themselves because they went to the gym as well for themselves. They worked out walking. You have different areas. You probably have some of them yourself, of course. So what's good about this is another one. You probably have more of them, but to be able to reach grit and handling it is one of the most important things for most people, because that's what life's all about. Doesn't matter where you work, where you're from.